Deek Jackson, of course. Well, we've just had the pleasure of Deek, so I'm sure most of you know who he is. Fucking news, the whole business, Deek Jackson. Vote Jackson. And Manjir, Samanta-Laughton, for those who were here yesterday, you will know new physics, punk science, whole new look at the universe around us. So, Manjir, Samanta-Laughton. And we have a new gentleman joining us, although not new for those who are already in these realms. But Dave Derby is, let me get this right, here we go, the founder and chief editor of The Sovereign Independent, which many of you have been reading this weekend. Here he is, all the way from Ireland.
My question is probably more directed to Peter Taylor. But you talked about the magnetic or huge solar flare or something. Is there anything we can do to prepare for something like that? And and also 2012, I mean, you talking about meditation and that sort of thing. Have you got anything to say more about that? And maybe someone else wants to say something else. Thank you.
Okay, preparing for the flare. Actually, one of the things that perhaps the first and most important thing to do is to ask your MP, or if you're in touch with your local council's emergency service, whoever's in charge of that, to simply ask them, and ask them if they are aware of the National Academy of Sciences report to Congress towards the end of 2008. On this issue and the discussions behind the scenes in the US Congress. Because what I'm talking about is very real, and there's definitely a possibility over this solar cycle or the next. As for practical preparations, the best thing to do is to simply look at how your daily life works and what your dependence is on electricity or computer chips. And then imagine a day when none of that works. And then imagine 3 years of that. And what you would need to do to make yourself reasonably resilient. So the kind of things that I'm doing, and I mean, it sounds crazy, but I'm just making sure I've got about a month's supply of everything I need, practically, food, water. Remember, the taps won't work because that's pumped. Your central heating system won't work because that's electrically driven. There'll be no news, no TV, no radio. So also think about connection with the people you care about. And connections, find out where there's food, because it certainly won't be in the supermarkets. So just to start to imagine how dependent our lives are on one simple thing, electricity. And that is a lesson in itself, it really is. And then in relation to 2012, I'm connected to networks of yogis and shamans, and they all talk about 2012 as the end of time. And the Mayans, as the only tribe on earth, in a way, who are keeping time in this way. And it's only recently I realized that they're keeping an astronomical clock, which is 26,000 years long. And in the solstice, they map the rising sun at the winter solstice. And that moves around 360 degrees over 26,000 years, the precession. Now, we call it the precession of the equinoxes. They simply map it at 90 degrees to that. So a civilization in AD 600, using their own astronomy, was aware of where the galactic center was, and the sun will align with galactic center on that time. It's an Earth-Sun alignment in that sense. I don't know what to expect in any physical sense. I can't really see anything. But as Manjir pointed out the other day, there's a huge amount that we don't know and we can't see. So they talk about major changes. And I'm not sure about that. My sense is that the major changes may well come before 2012. and that this summer will be the more crucial time. And I'm saying to all the people I know, between May and October of this year, be prepared for some kind of solar event, even if it's only inside yourself, so that you're not surprised when something happens and you're not shocked, and the people around you know a little bit. So that's what I would advise.
The dark forces around the world are very organised, and they've been organised for hundreds of years, if not longer. We're not. I've spoken to a lot of people here from different areas, and a lot of them are looking for people to network with, but they're not meeting people. Now, I've spoken to people and pointed out people to other people. I just wondered whether it was worth, for those of you who do want to meet folk, at the end of this session or any other time, just to say, right, well, let's say everyone from Ireland goes there, Scotland over there, Southwest there, and then you can just go, if you want, and meet people who live close to you. And then you can look at doing something with that.
Sounds a good idea to me. In fact, yeah.
I'd like to just introduce myself. My name is Mohammed Altaf. I'm from Manchester. It's been my first event to come to the Alternative View. I'd like to say that I'd like to congratulate all the speakers. What a fantastic job you guys have done. It's just reconfirmed what my views were on what was happening in the world for the last 3 years. And it's really surprising that it's coming from this part of the world, to be honest, because the faith that I believe in has told me 1400 years ago this was going to happen. And to hear from the West and within the people that we live in with the same sort of views is amazing. Now, we have an enemy which is clear to us today, and that is evil, and there must be good. Now, if the evil are saying Islam is a terrorist religion, let me tell you, Islam is not a terrorist religion, and people that live next door to you and all the Muslims that you see, please get to know them. They're not terrorist people. In the word team, there's no letter I. We're all on the same side. Anybody that has any different beliefs with that, I would like to tell you to go and watch a series on YouTube called The Arrivals, and that will clear a lot of mist maybe in our minds. And for alternative view, I would say maybe in the AV4, maybe find a link from the Quran with what's happening in the world and see if we could have a speaker that could confirm all the facts. And that hopefully will unite us all, because the evil wants us to divide. That's what they've been doing, dividing us and ruling us. But we need to unite under one banner, and that is peace and love.
I'd like to respond on the issue of good and evil. As far as I know, there is no law of physics or any tangible way of measuring what is good or evil. And it's my view that, in fact, there's no such thing as evil or good in the world. There's what you like, and there's what you don't like. But there isn't any good or evil. And our lives on planet Earth and the life of our entire planet is short cosmically. All life on Earth will be gone soon cosmically, and the universe won't mind, and it won't think it's good or bad. There is no good or bad, there's just what you like. And there are lots of things I don't like, and I'm sure there's things that gentleman doesn't like. But characterizing other people or other people's actions as good or evil makes you the arbiter of what's good or evil, and I don't think that that's possible in any absolute way.
So I would like to respond to that from a sort of physics perspective. I spoke yesterday about everything in our reality below the speed of light as splitting into antimatter and matter particles. And they have come from light, and it's as if they have split and they become light in disguise. And these are actually polarities of each other, and they are mirror images of each other, and they hold opposite charge and opposite spin. But in reality, there are always at one level still the light, and as it is in life, it looks as if there's polarities of good and evil and things like that, but they're actually just mirror projections of our own consciousness. And when we start to look at what we perceive as evil in the world and start to look at ourselves within and actually go, well, how is it that I might be looking like something like that to somebody else? and actually do that inner work. And instead of putting everything outside of ourselves, realise that there is nothing outside of ourselves. We are all one, we are all unity. All of the esoteric traditions have always said that. Then we can start to integrate. Instead of rejecting, start to integrate and bring the antimatter and matter particle together and combine it again to make light. And that is how we ascend. Okay, thank you.
Okay, next question.
Hi there. Peter's rather gloomy warning there about solar flares. I know there is a danger from solar flares, very large solar particle events that hit the Earth. I mean, especially when the Earth's magnetosphere is compromised, as it happens during a magnetic pole reversal, which we are experiencing at the moment and have been for some time. Now, I was just wondering, I mean, I know this could happen in 2012. It could happen any other year as well. I don't see any reason to think it's more likely to happen in 2012 than any other year. But if it does happen, could it be a cloud with a silver lining? And the reason I ask that question is, although technology provides us with all the iPods and things like that Deek was saying we don't really need, it does also provide us with things we do need, like refrigerators, transportation. But it's also, it has a third element to it, and that is it's used as a tool and a weapon against us by people who want to control us and want to dominate us and even kill us and destroy us. They too will lose their power. They will as well. In a sense, the playing field will be kind of leveled. And I don't believe that, there will be troubles we can go through, but it will kind of enforce, it will really kick us up the arse and kind of enforce some of the policies that the Landless Peasant Party want, which is we grow our own food. I mean, we will do that. I mean, we will not. A certain number of us will just walk, instead of sitting around moping, we'll get out of our house, we'll go and find food, we'll hunt animals, we'll gather plants. I mean, there are plenty of books you can buy which tells you which ones you can eat and which ones you can't. We just read those, we pass the knowledge on to other people. For 100,000 years or more since we came down from the trees when we stopped being apes. We lived like this and we thrived. It's only in the last 100 years we've become dependent on this technology. I mean, it'll scupper the New World Order, it really will, for those of you who think that's going to happen. So that's just something to think about. Deek.
Yeah, I agree with some of that, what that gentleman's saying. Humans have looked after themselves for a long time without all of the technology, which will disappear, regularly, and has disappeared regularly. The world has been subjected to a number of frequent catastrophic events. And at one point, according to genetic scientists, there were as few as 80,000 humans on planet Earth not so long ago. Haven't we done well? We're now up to nearly 7 billion, so yeah, we can do it again. If something terrible happens, hopefully we'll survive, and we'll probably do all this again. Something to look forward to.
A lot of ancient people speak of many cycles to the planet. That people speak of this is the time of the fifth sun or the sixth sun, and so according to many ancient traditions, the Earth has been through many cycles of growth and destruction and growth and destruction. And in reality, if consciousness cannot be created or destroyed, then every single soul, where did all these souls come from? If we have 80,000 people on the planet and then we suddenly have so many billion on the planet, where have they come from? Somewhere, consciousness is somewhere, and it's just changed form to manifest on this planet. And say something happens to this planet, when these souls will just move on somewhere else again. So consciousness is fundamental to reality. It cannot be created or destroyed. It just moves into different forms. So I think when people are sort of fearing, oh my goodness, everything's going to be destroyed, the absolute fundamental aspect of ourselves can never be destroyed.
This is probably for Deek and the guy from the Irish Sovereign. Some background information. I work in computer maintenance of computer control systems. So my standard joke is we control your water and your wind. So we do things like Thames Water and stuff like that. But what most of the people probably are not aware of is that as the computer technology has got bigger, like companies merging together, the computer systems are starting to merge together. So I'll try not to name names and get in too much trouble, but although the economic union of Europe is happening, so is the infrastructure. So I already know of that, and funny, it's for wind farms, both are for wind farms. One company in this country has recently moved its computer control of all the British, or some of the British wind farms to Germany. They are now run on virtual computers there. And in Ireland, there is one company that is running lots of wind farms and maybe some other stuff via satellites across the whole of the UK. So basically, from a point of view of if you want to be a separate party or how things are integrated, there is this joining together at a business level that can no longer be, or is much harder to break. So if you want to step away from Europe and things they're doing, you have to take into account that you're controlling somebody else's energy in the case of something in Ireland, and in Britain, somebody in Germany is running some of our stuff, and this is just going to increase. Your thoughts?
As far as computer technology is concerned, this is where we wanted to step away from when we created the newspaper, and that was the whole theory in the first place. If I could just spend a minute just giving you a little bit of history of the Sovereign Independent and where we're coming from as far as moving away from the internet is concerned. Basically, the idea of the Sovereign Independent came from the AV4 conference, actually in this very venue, about the same time last year. And it was after a chance conversation that I was having with Brian Geairns. It was in a run-up to the Lisbon referendum, and there was a lot of campaigning going on in Ireland, poster campaigns and flyer campaigns. And Brian Geairns basically put the idea into my head, possibly for an Irish edition of the UK column. Well, I took it up a step further and had to think about it, and my theory that I came to really was the fact that in the very near future, with all of this computer technology and this networking worldwide, as far as that's concerned, there could come a time when, there could come a time when we may not have the internet anymore. There could come a time when the whole system is so controlled that we may not be able to put over the information that we're able to at the moment, because at the moment the internet is not owned by anybody, it's very free. And we decided that that printed media, if we print newspapers, that this is going to, if anything happens to the internet, if anything happens to the infrastructure in that way, it's going to be very hard to take 370,000 copies of the Sovereign Independent out of circulation. And this is exactly what we've done. So what we are thinking in terms, and I suppose this ties in also with possible issues, possibly 2012, where we may lose our power and we may lose the whole infrastructure, because of solar catastrophes and what have you. But we felt that we need to step away from that and maybe go back to basics and try to sort of try to provide our information in a more traditional way. So the mentality was there as far as the newspaper was concerned. Now, as far as wind farms and that are concerned, again, we have a lot of integration on a global basis. And there are issues there where Ireland is not really in control of anything anymore. We're not in control of our own economy because we're heading towards a global economy. Obviously, a few years ago we became part of the euro. So we are losing our independence, and I'm talking about our literal independence, being able to be self-sufficient. We're losing that rapidly. That these are issues that need to be addressed. As far as the wind farms are concerned, they're going up all over Ireland now. There's a lot of people that are not happy with them. We have issues with them as well. Yes, we absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, we've got, and also what David Bellamy was talking about the other day, all of those issues people are finding, but again, any time we address these issues to the government, they're falling on deaf ears at the moment. So we really do need to take things into our own hands as far as we possibly can. That's about the best that I can give you on that one at the moment.
Yeah, I'd just like to connect the comments and questions that the gentleman said with what Peter said earlier and Davis just said. Centralization of our power supply seems a little Soviet to me. And in fact, anything that you can do to supply your own needs would not only be useful in a catastrophe, it will be useful today. I don't know why people aren't getting their own windmills or solar panels, but I suspect it's got something to do with you all having an electricity bill. And so, yeah, don't wait for a catastrophe to supply your own needs. It will be useful, whether there is one or not.
And just adding to that a little bit, my co-editor, Neil Foster, fortunately he lives in the country like many of us do, in Ireland. He's dug his own well, okay? So he's given himself some self-sufficiency in that way. Also, looking at the future, you can go onto eBay and you can order these special bags called Mylar bags, or Mylar sacks. If you want to write that down, that's spelled M-Y-L-A-R. These are 5-gallon sacks that you can store grain in and you can store any sort of foodstuffs in. And you get these little oxygen absorbers which you put in them, and you can iron them closed, and these will preserve your food and your grain for 10 years. So if you're looking at survival techniques, that's something that a few of us are working on. So if you search out on eBay, they cost about £3 or £4 each. That'll give you something for the future. It'll give you grain that you can grow in the future, and you can store dried foods, dried milk, and various other foodstuffs. You can find all the details online. If you just type in Mylar sacks in Google and in eBay, you'll be able to find a lot of information about it. And I think that is a very good way to go at the moment, because we really don't know. With the economy coming to a collapse as well, because if I tell you a little bit about the Irish economy, and this is a situation we're in at the moment, the Irish government debt, the public debt, is nearly 80 billion euros. Now, that doesn't sound an awful lot compared to the UK or the United States, but when you consider there's only 4.2 million people in Ireland, okay, that works out, I think that works out about 17,000 euros per head. That's rising all the time. It's actually rising by 20 billion euros a year, which is a massive, massive amount. And that's exponential, it's accelerating. Maybe this time, in 6 months' time, it could be 25 billion a year. So we're actually on the verge of a collapse, like we are all over the world. So we really do need to think, not tomorrow, not next week, but we've got to think now, because this could happen next week. I'm surprised that the economy hasn't collapsed as it is. I don't know why the economy is still floating at the moment. In England and the United States of America, we have quantitative easing and what have you, that is keeping their economy afloat. It's all being charged back to the taxpayer. The same thing is happening in Ireland, and this is the sort of thing that I'm trying to address. And in our next issue, we will be addressing this, and I hope that it's not too late. So again, if you can look at storing food in Mylar sacks, you can start thinking about growing your own stuff. This may sound a little bit extreme, but we do have to think in extreme circumstances. You're going to need candles, you're going to need solid fuel. So you do really need to stock up on this sort of stuff. This is a reality, and we can't just sit here thinking, well, you know, things are looking bad, we're really in trouble, and do nothing about it. You need to take proactive steps. And at the moment, you can. At the moment, we do have a chance to actually make measures to look after our families in the future, and we really, really do need to do that now. Really, forget your holidays, forget your 42-inch plasma TVs at the moment. It's not a time to do it. It really isn't.
Okay, let's have the next question.
Okay.
Hi, I'm the guy who has the well that works with Dave over there. I'd just like to thank everybody who's donated to the paper to date. You've been very generous, and you know it's much appreciated by all of us who've put our time into the paper. Another thing I would say is Mr. Jackson's a brave man to go up against Gordon Brown, and you know if anybody here has £1 to spare, that's all it takes to pay this man's deposit. £1 from everybody, and he's got his stand against Gordon Brown. And so don't give it to the Sovereign Independent, give it to him. Okay?
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Harry. I'm a geologist, geophysicist, and I work in Australia. I'd just like to comment on the solar flare issue. Want me to read it? I give a lecture on a subject called electric geology, and About 6 years ago, I was on a trip away from Perth, Western Australia, and when I came back in the evening, there was a very violent black storm, enormous amounts of water flow, people's cars jammed, stopped on roads, a lot of electrical interference, a lot of lightning. The next morning it had died off a bit, and then it came back again with enormous tornadoes, which stripped houses to pieces and dropped huge trees across roads. And I was stopped from going to the airport about 50 kilometres from my house by several roadblocks. I put this on the internet, and I got replies from people across the planet who had had similar experiences, from Nebraska to the Amazon to Egypt. I did a little bit of research, and the Solar Space Weather website in the States recorded enormous electron flow and proton flow from a solar flare on the sun. When I looked at this, I realised that what certain astronomers have been saying for the last 250 years was definitely right, and that we can get extreme weather generated from solar flares. So one of the things to look at if we do get this future intense flare that you're talking about is that you'll realise you're getting it by the intense weather which unfolds at the same time. So it's not just a question of your computer chips getting fried or electricity not being available. You're going to have intense storms which, in the case of what was a fairly small solar flare that happened to direct at planet Earth, the orbit of the Earth was such that when this flare particle flow hit us, it compressed a magnetosphere, and really it charges up the ionosphere Earth capacitor space. And once that discharges in spiral form, you get huge lightning strikes, you get storms, you get violent weather. You also, we know from geology, or some of us realise this, you also get earthquake triggers. So we're liable to know about this intense flare before we read about it in the press. In fact, you won't read about it in the press because that won't happen. It won't be on television because television won't work. But you will know you're getting it from the intense storms and possibly earthquakes if you're in regions that normally get them. So these are the sorts of things you have to think about to plan for in the future. So if you'd like to comment, I'd be interested in your views.
I think we've got two replies coming up. All right, Manjir, then Peter.
So I'm not sure if you were in my lecture yesterday. Yeah, so what I was discussing there is how it isn't just the solar patterns, because everything in the universe is showing this fractal black hole behaviour. The Earth also, its own patterns actually influence the weather as well as solar flares as well. And that has now been studied because we're in a solar minimum, and scientists are now studying that and seeing that the Earth pattern has a correspondence to space weather in a pattern that only can come from the Earth. But not only that, I think that the increases in all the weather, what I didn't emphasise yesterday, is it's all linked to consciousness, because quantum physics tells us that consciousness is fundamental. You know, as we see the weather change, we also see a huge change in humanity's consciousness and awareness. And we can see that everybody's waking up, and all of these things are absolutely linked. And as black hole principle goes one way and another, it's absolutely linked to everything, all the consciousness of any being or anything that's that you could say is alive, or, you know, just consciousness itself, the mind of God, as it were. So as everything is sort of moving in consciousness, so we get a solar flare here, so we get a planetary flare here, so we get a comet moving, and, you know, everything is breathing in and out according to universal consciousness, and that is also what's influencing our weather. So we're all linked. You know, everything that we're actually thinking is holographic. Everything is linked to everything else.
I can't remember if I mentioned that NASA had developed an application for iPods which will give you a warning when the magnetic pulse is on its way. They've actually just positioned a satellite between the Earth and the Sun to pick up the pulse, and we would have something like 8 to 15 hours warning. Of course, most people won't know what to do. And talking about self-sufficiency, the simplest answer to looking after yourself for a month is to get a gas bottle, a couple of gas bottles and a little ring, so that you don't need electricity. And just to give yourself that little bit of a cushion, so you're not having to worry about food and water and all of those kind of things. There'll be a lot more serious things to think about. And then to reiterate that ultimately this is a minor thing that could happen cosmically. It's nothing. Solar flares happened. In fact, for those of you into synchronicity, I was visiting some climate labs in Boulder, Colorado a few weeks ago, staying with a friend. And we went to Denver Museum of Art. And they have a wonderful floor there of Native American art. And just coming in on that, there was a little part of the gallery devoted to when the first settlers came and started to paint the landscape. So there was a painting of Denver. Now, Denver today is a huge city. And Denver in 1859 was like two rivers meeting and a few trees and a buffalo. And there was this beautiful painting of it. And I just thought, wow, it's dated 1859. That was the date of the major flare that came through. So in all you'd notice straight away, because there would be brilliant lights in the sky. And apparently you could read a newspaper on the equator from the aurora borealis, which had spread all over the Earth. So we would certainly know about it. I'm not sure at what point the pulse hits the electricity, but there would be a little bit of a warning, because people are watching the sun like in real time all over the planet with the internet, which wasn't the case in 1859. There was just one man, a British astronomer called Carrington, who was watching, and they saw the flare, but the actual energy arrives something like 20 hours later. So yeah, we would know. I think we would know that something was coming. But the question is, how ready would we be? And most important of all, which I tend to forget, is it's not technical. That the readiness has to be inside. It has to be to identify with this, which is, like Manjir was saying, which is beyond all of this, because we all have to go sometime. And if the shamans are saying, well, you're all going to go together in 2012, well, how cool is that? It's like a deadline. And it's like, wow, you've got to be ready for it. And some cultures train for that moment. In Tibet, and train for what are you going to take with you to this invisible other reality that is the province of the Divine Mother, and will then rebirth humanity, whatever that is, maybe somewhere else.
And the next question.
It's a comment, really. I believe it's a fairly open forum. Well, another bit of synchronicity. I was just going to go to Perth. This gentleman was from Perth. And thank you, British Airways, for cancelling my flight. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. And I chose the only flight that was cancelled. So there we are. That's synchronicity for you. I suppose people wanted me here, so here I am. And I've survived the Arctic conditions here, a little bit below comfort level. No comment. Well, that was a comment. This is a public service announcement. I've tried to figure out how we can spread the word to others, because it's all very well being nice and cozy here, but we've got to get the message. So I made a website which is specifically about linking everyone with all websites that have to do with such such matters. And if you very kindly look at it when you get home, and if I've missed any out, I've tried to make it friendly, you see, to people who are not familiar with this, you see. And it's called future-earth.info, future-earth.info, and there's a little boxy you can fill in and say, hey, Brian, you've missed this one out. So I've got 164 sites. I think there's about 250 major ones out there. So the idea is, my slogan is be informed or be controlled.
I don't believe that there's going to be a big catastrophe that will wipe us out on the planet physically. I'm not just talking about solar flare, because if it's happened before, it's never got rid of the elites and the dark forces. They've just kept coming back and back and back, and will do. It will be more like a dimensional shift, where reality pops into a different thing, and they can no longer sync with this vibration.
Could I just add something there? Could I just... I mean, I think it's worth saying here, because obviously there are the practical elements of what could or may not happen to do with 2012, but as has just been alluded to there, it's worth bearing in mind that some of the prophecies and some of the writings about 2012, of course, speak of, at the other end of the process, some raised state of consciousness. And there are some practical reasons why that could occur. Now, for those of you that don't know, I edited Jeff Stray's book, Beyond 2012, and I've written about this in my own book, The Truth Agenda, so I've done a bit of research into this. The effects of electromagnetic pulse waves on the brain is in itself really interesting. You look at the work of people like Rick Strassman and Dr. Michael Persinger, our pineal glands in particular start to produce all sorts of different substances, including DMT, which of course is in ayahuasca, which can give shamanic experiences, higher states of spiritual consciousness. So one of the other aspects of 2012 is that despite what may or may not be going on and eating tins of beans in the corner, you may also be having a mass out-of-body experience all at the same time, which leaves you in a higher state of consciousness. So I just want to add that in, because we can get very gloomy here, but it's also my personal belief we won't all be wiped out. I think it will perhaps be a milder event than we're expecting, but yeah, maybe you might need some windmills in your garden for a couple of years at least. But yeah, I think we should just remember there is a positive aspect to this too.
I'd like to say on that positive sense, 20 years ago in my work against the powerful industries that were releasing toxic waste and so forth, I ended up in the top of one of those towers in the city. I can't remember which one it was, but I was looking out right across, and there was a boardroom, and there were all guys there, and they'd been haranguing me. You know, we were there to talk about toxic waste, and they were saying, well, where would you have been against Hitler? Would you have fought in the Battle of Britain? That kind of stuff. And I was like, can we talk about nuclear waste, please? And I definitely had a feeling of what it was like in those sorts of echelons. Well, since I've written this book on climate, the only people who've really been drawing me in and saying, we've read your book, come and talk to us, are the financial community. And so a couple of weeks ago, I was in another one of the glass towers, and I thought, well, this will be an opportunity, because I've got 20 years of kind of shamanic awareness now. I can kind of expand out a bit and just check out what's going on here. And I was really surprised. It didn't feel like I expected it to feel. It felt very clear. It felt chastened almost. And I'm only just repeating what my intuition and experience was, but it was almost as if the controllers had woken up to the fact that they were not in control. And it was a really deep, chastening experience. And I've been reflecting on it. It's like, could the bad guys have actually woken up to what's real? And if something like this electromagnetic pulse happens and it takes out the whole electricity, and they knew about this. This was the amazing thing. One of the bankers, as he was leaving the meeting, said to me, you know, Peter, we know about this Carrington event. Or I know about this Carrington event. And then he said, I'm a bit of an amateur astronomer. And there was a lot of meaning in that as he left. And I thought, okay, the esoteric orders have been looking at this. They're aware of it. And so they're looking at this whole empire, this whole structure, and realizing it could all come down in a moment. And there's nothing for them. They're almost laughing at themselves. And that's the power that something has to just reconnect everybody to the basics of what really matters, which is your family, love, community, where your food is, your water, your creativity. And my view of dark forces has changed as well, and I've been up against them. And that is that you could sort of see a few lizard heads if you look carefully, and you can imagine that they're alien, but what does that really mean? Human is actually an expanded form of consciousness That's why it's here. It's galactic. We are all galactic beings. And the truth of who we are is so enormous that the masters haven't found words to tell us. They just said, you guys just don't realize how great you are, you know. This is it. Being human is it. So that means we have to take responsibility for all the bad guys. And all they are men afraid of their own shadow. And there's nothing more dangerous than that. There's nothing more evil than that. And when Tony Blair bombs the hell out of Afghanistan, he's doing it in an age-old tradition of Christians who've lost the plot and are not in touch with the teachings of their master because of that fear. So what is that fear? It's the fear of losing control, of not being in control. And now they realize they're not in control, and actually something else, call it fate or the Divine Mother or whatever you want to call it, actually rules the show. And there could be a real powerful awakening happening. And if such a thing happened, this pulse, the only thing that would matter would be people working together, community. That could be the resurgence. And so there is this fantastic potential. I don't want to kind of come out that I'm all in doom and gloom and disaster. I think there's a big shift coming, and I think it's coming soon, before 2012.
I may be in a minority here. I expect I am. I think I'll be at AV12 in 2013, and so will many of you. And I'd like to ask anyone out there who thinks they've got a higher consciousness to pop down to the geriatric hospitals and help wipe old people's bottoms. Because there are plenty of broken children and suffering people waiting for people with a higher consciousness today to start doing something nice for other people. Self-awareness, self-development, self. If you've got a higher consciousness, there's plenty of suffering right now. Don't wait for the spiritual nexus that may or may not be coming. Go out and do something nice now. I'll see you in 2013. Be there.
Dave.
On that note, I'd like to also just give a response to the gentleman a little while ago who said that he set up a website and he's looking to exchange links and what have you. I think it's very important that we do actually get to know each other at these events. This is what these events are for. We don't want to be just sitting here and listening to talks for our entertainment and then go home and watch more Alex Jones movies and talk about how fucked we are, you know. We want to actually do something about it, and this is exactly how our newspaper started, and a lot of other websites and that have started. There's a lot of people here, and you've got a great opportunity to meet people that can offer skills and offer talents that you can work with. Like in our experience, like I say, I went back to Ireland where I live after AV2, after the idea of a newspaper, and I was giving a talk in Galway, an EU Truth talk, and I mentioned the idea of a newspaper. And there was a few people there in the audience, a few truth groups. There was One World Scam, there was We Are Change Era were there, and we got together, and the various talents got put together. And you know, you can't necessarily do this on your own. You can do certain things on your own, but make the most out of this event. You know, talk to people because it is possible. In our experience, as far as the newspaper is concerned, you can look at the likes of the UK column and any other paper and think, oh my God, I'd never be able to do something like that. But you can, just for maybe a couple of £100 each, 4 or 5 of you get together. Some of you may be good writers, some of you may be good at graphics. You can maybe get 2,000 or 3,000 papers or even newsletters printed, just for a few £100. You can write to, and you can email different researchers and different writers. Like with our paper now, we're only in the 2nd edition, and we've got the likes of Jim Core writing exclusively for us. We've got Alan Watts, we've got James Corbett, we've got people like that are writing for us exclusively, and they're actually advertising us on their programs and on their websites. So it extends, doesn't it? You're meeting people here, you're getting together, you're starting something small that you didn't think you could do before. You do it, it starts building up interest, you start putting out emails to everybody, to different websites, and it gives these other researchers and these other writers another avenue, another conduit to get their information out. Because like I say, if the New World Order get away, we won't have the internet anymore. So the likes of Alan Watt, the likes of James Corbett, they're itching for this sort of stuff. They're writing on their own internet websites, and still it's only a select audience that are actually receiving their information. But if you ask them if you can use their information, you can use their material, if you can ask them to write for you, they will write for you. They'll snatch your hand off to write for you. The whole thing will take on a life of its own. And I'd say that there's probably groups of you here that can actually get together and say, yeah, I'd like to put together a newspaper, what do you think? And you can get together, and in no time at all, 3 or 4 weeks' time, you could have, even if you only print one issue, even if you only print 2,000 copies for a few £100, you can put out these newspapers. What we want to do is actually set a precedent. It was because of the UK column, because of what the idea that Brian Geairns put into my head when we were having a conversation just out there in the foyer a year ago today. He put that idea into my head, and I thought, yeah, that's a great idea. I'd never thought of a newspaper before. And I went back to Ireland and I thought about it, and I thought, yeah, that's great, actually, because people love newspapers. You know, that's why we've still got loads of news agents everywhere. This is why Ian Crane spends a fortune every day buying every single paper, because there are a lot of them around. So people do still love them. Don't underestimate it. The internet has not killed printed media yet. And we need to counteract the mainstream media and the lies they're putting out. And the only way we can do that is to be proactive about it and actually put out our own newspapers. You need to make sure that everything you're doing is accurate. You need to make sure everything is proofread and spelt checked. You need to make sure that you're not creating any libel situations. You need to be careful what you're doing, but it is doable, it is possible. And the Sovereign Independent is a testimony to the success of something that started off small, that was just an idea in this very venue, and look at us now. So you can all do it, and it's not just newspapers, it's leaflets, anything you want to do. But you can start with websites, you can exchange links. We don't want to be separated, you know, like it's like divided we fall. We don't want to be divided, we want to show these elites that we are actually united, and by sharing information with each other, we're building up our own information bases, and we're also meeting more and more people, providing more and more possibilities to do more things to get this information out to people. There is a paradigm shift like people are talking about. It is happening, but only you can do it, and you don't want to waste this opportunity of AV4 and walk away and do nothing. It's ridiculous. You need to be proactive and do something. And if you want to contact us for any tips, download templates from us to create your own newspapers, then contact us and we'll help you out with that. It's perfectly doable.
It's questions and a little comment as well. Just want to say thank you very much to everyone at AV4 for this event. Speaking to people, what's obvious is that we all feel very relieved that we have found somebody to talk to who is also concerned, because our friends and family think we're all nutters. So it's really nice to be here speaking to people, and they watch Edge Media and they're very concerned. So it's really lovely. So I'm a bit confused when, I think life is very simple. We are here here in the conference because we know something's wrong. I think that is a basic instinct in the human being, whether it makes our energy vibrate wrong or something, but we can feel physically sick when we know something is wrong. Every culture knows about an angelic and demonic realm. Religion is very unpopular and old-fashioned and fuddy-duddy, yet most people in this room will have celebrated Christmas just a few months ago, and we know that people do it for different reasons. But there is something, some people want to call it religion, some people want to call it higher consciousness. It really should be the same thing. What we're looking at is an awareness, that we are one humanity and we are vibrating. But to say that there is no evil is difficult when there are small groups of people who are destroying our water, killing our kids with immunizations, making sure our food is all polluted, making sure our brains are polluted, making sure our whole lives are destroyed, causing, they're not wars, they're invasions and their oppressions. I can't understand how that is not considered evil. But again, there is good and there is evil because there's always an opposite. So, you know, to me, these people, we are here to stand up for the good and come together to try and squash the evil or do something about it.
just ask you then, because you just said something that's a bit of a paradox, because you said that all of humanity is one and united, but you said there's an evil that is outside of you that we need to squash. So how can you be united but also have an evil that you need to squash? Isn't it all unity?
Some people don't see themselves as part of one human race.
But if you're saying there's an evil that you need to squash, that you're saying that the evil is outside of you.
Yeah, you're on a physics level, I'm just on a human...
No, I'm just
I'm
on metaphysics.
Yeah, but all I think is that, society, the small groups make us all fight, yeah? They say, the whites are better than the blacks, and we're all always made to fight. If we all united as one human race and then saw the group of people who were being bad to us all, yeah, that's who we've got to handle. And if you look at it on a religious level, the Christians believe in a second coming of Jesus, the Muslims believe in the coming of Jesus, the Jewish faith actually believe that their Messiah is coming. Whether you want to look at it as a religious thing or you want to look at it as a consciousness thing, something has to change. And it's only with awareness that we can see that something is wrong, that we can do something about it. If we have our heads buried in the sand and think, ooh, I haven't got the energy, I haven't got the strength, I'm too, we've got to be strong, and we're here because we're strong. But I don't know if that's making sense.
Yeah, I'm not talking about burying your head in the sand. I'm actually talking about becoming aware that what it is that is really bothering you, like really annoying you, actually looking within and realizing that everything that really bothers you is actually a mirror of something within. And yeah, yes, because at a completely collective level, as Peter was saying earlier, that we are all unity and we are all one.
Let's let the panel respond. Let's let the panel respond if we could.
Yeah, because it's a paradox to say that we are all unity and then saying that there's something outside of ourselves that we have to be squashed. And what the Illuminati and what all of these things are showing us is just how powerful we are, and they're actually providing a service for us to wake up to our own responsibility, our own power, and they're providing something for us to actually sort of push against so that we can understand and bring that responsibility back to ourselves. So it's a great lesson in humanity that we're going through at the moment.
Deek. I think Deek's got something he'd like to share.
Humans are no more amazing than beetles. They're not. They have no right to a better life than beetles. I'm actually on the side of trees, and I'm ambivalent about the survival of humans. Really. Let me paint a little picture for you. There's a race of space-traveling aliens out there, and they're coming to Earth to suck our brains out. And they're going to kill all of us, men, women, and children, and our livestock, painfully. The universe, amazingly, made those brain-sucking aliens, and those brain-sucking aliens are awesome. So are we, but we're no more awesome than them, or beetles, or bacteria, or stars, or electrons. It's all amazing.
I watch a lot of politics. I'm on the left-hand side of Peter's area, and I'm struggling with the right-hand side of my feminine side. And the reason I watch the politics, and especially Question Time, is not because of the crap that comes out of the mouths of the politicians, but because actually I want to feel that I'm not alone, and that actually everybody else in the audience feels like me. And most of the time on a Thursday night, actually, I think it's a feel-good factor because most people do, and they're fed up with what comes out of these people's mouths all the time. I'd like to ask you, before you started deciding you were going to stand, you must have actually had some thoughts yourself about how you're going to be received in your local town and how you're going to actually communicate with the people. How did you go about it, and what response did you get from those people? You said, do you know what, actually, I think I'm on a, maybe not a winner, but at least some people don't think I'm a nutter.
Actually, yeah, I have done very little campaigning. They haven't called the election yet, and so there's no hustings, and I haven't, per se, done any campaigning. But I have been out in public as a landless peasant and spoken to a few people, and on the whole, people know they're landless peasants. And when you say, I'm in the landless peasant party, generally people go, oh, yeah, I'm a landless peasant. Almost immediately and automatically, there's an understanding that that is our situation here now. And so I'm quite optimistic, perhaps, about saving our deposit, and perhaps even we might even allow ourselves to dream that a broader political class could come about because of movements like this and activities like this. So I don't know how I'm going to go about it, but part of my plan is to drive around Kirkcaldy with a megaphone on top of my car until 10 o'clock at night, to the limit of the legal allowance I'm allowed, playing our political broadcasts.
I'm very concerned about a totalitarian state, which would, I think, come in the form that the majority of people wouldn't even notice it, because they'd say of the people who've been locked away, they deserved it. I recommend, and asking what the panel would think about the idea, is everybody here actually goes out into the countryside and the towns, and particularly derelict factory sites, and looks for venues which would be suitable for conversion to prisons, in the same way as William had gone out to look for the sinister economic forces that are happening. I think we need to look for what alterations to buildings or land could be used by the mind of somebody planning something like that. The second part is, I think we need to get some of our messages very carefully across to police forces and to members of Her Majesty's service, because they are the ones that will be called upon to do this dirty trickery work. And they're all bad people, that's for certain, but they will be the ones that will be most carefully trapped by the psychology as well as the economics of their job.
You're absolutely right when you say that the police and that are not bad people. They're being made to do the jobs that they're doing, and most of the time they don't know what they're doing. I can tell you now that every single policeman and policewoman in this country has a firearm to their name. Okay? These firearms, a friend of mine, well actually a friend of my brother's, who's a policewoman, she was being taken around somewhere, I don't know whether it was Hendon or some police headquarters anyway, and she went into this warehouse place that was just full of firearms, and she couldn't believe her eyes in how many firearms that were in there. And I'm not just talking about tasers, which are mild compared to some of these firearms. These were like submachine guns. These were real heavy firearms. And she said, oh, who were they for? She said, oh, you've got one. Every policeman and policewoman in this country has got a firearm to their name. Okay. When she asked, well, what are they for? She was told, well, one day you are going to need them very soon. Okay. Now, I'd say that most of the policemen and policewomen in this country and around the world don't know that. Now, this is the sort of thing that we need to find out, and we need to let them know, because they're actually on our side, or they should be on our side. And what we're doing by doing nothing and saying nothing, we're just letting our police, who are supposed to be there to serve us, because they are servants, they're actually supposed to be to protect and to serve us. And gradually, as time's going by, they're being made to look like our enemies. Okay, they're being made to extort money out of us on a daily basis, and they don't realise what they're doing. Again, we heard the term tiptoe totalitarianism. This is happening all the time, and they don't even see it happening. I mean, the masses, the sheeple, if you want to call them the sheeple, in this country and around the world, they don't see what's happening because it's happening so gradually. Okay, we all know that, using gradualism and incrementalism. The same thing is happening to the police, and the same thing is happening to the army. Okay. They're also being used against their will and without their knowledge. So they should be on our side, they are on our side, and we need to make them know that, and we need to make them know what they're being forced into. For instance, Neil Foster, he's printed out information from the internet. I'll say Neil Foster's my co-editor on the newspaper, okay. Now he's printed out information from the internet about an EU police force, and he's gone into a local police station in Ireland where we live. And he's shown that to them, he's given that to them, and he said, look, this is what they're doing to you. Do you know anything about this? These people are going to take precedence over you. They're going to usurp your authority. The Garda didn't know that. The police don't know this. And this is where our responsibility lies. Like I said a little while ago, there's no point in us going home and then sitting and being entertained by Alex Jones and going on about what a mess we're in. We need to be proactive. We need to do something about it. We need to know the police and the soldiers of this country, we need them to know that they are also being used in the same way as we are.
Thank you for that, because it's confirmed that I'm just not being creepy about it. But again, I'll ask people to take on responsibility, the same as the people on the platform, in particular to anything that's altered that seems to you to be sinister, and in particular, physical places where people can be hidden. And if you're really sinister, what happened, well, it happened under the Shah of Persia. A good place to put a torture chamber is in the ordinary basement or on the 6th floor of a large tower block. You need to have janitors of big places that have got quite lush offices in it and get them to be suspicious as well. They're not going to just use things that more obviously look like a prison with a barbed wire around it.
I'm not sure really the answer is to build more prisons until we've actually understood why people end up in prisons in the first place. And from my work as a GP and my work in impoverished communities, I definitely found that a lot of people in these situations are people with severe emotional problems. And when, you know, from broken homes and with very, very damaged, what you might call very damaged inner childs. And when you actually work with these people on an emotional level, get to an emotional resolution, and often that means a place of non-judgment where you've actually brought that positron and electron together, and that's the science of it, and into light. It totally liberates people. And I've seen communities that are being struck off by society as never going to get anywhere. Once you do this emotional resolution, their worlds open up. And they become empowered. And same in prisons, when you do this work, and by the time it gets to that stage, often it takes a long time to bring somebody out of their shell. So, but a lot of the time, society, we're not bothered to actually do that work because it takes time, it's deep, it means working with something intangible to us, such as emotions, and we just don't bother. But until we get that right, to look at actually what's happening in our prisons right now, building more prisons, I don't think is you know, just simply the way forward.
Hello, thanks very much for a lovely conference. It's been brilliant, thank you. I don't know, I sort of lost the track of where I was going now. I was referring to your physical universe thing, where you've got the black holes going in and out of stuff, and stuff coming in and stuff going out. Logically, there's some kind of transition there, and then you try to say that the evil is within us. But is it not possible, given the duality of the universe is, that there could be duality within us, and that each one of us is a vessel for something which is, or has a tendency to be, either on one side or the other side, and that we could be good or evil, and perhaps that is what the whole subject of us being here is about. On a kind of spiritual level, there is good and there is clearly evil, and if you see evil, then there must be good. Everything has to be in balance. If it goes one way, then yeah, we will collapse. And your transmission of our energy might well go out through a black hole and come in through a quasar. And also, I was wondering if you could tell us what them things are on the side of the sun. The NASA photographs.
I think you're referring to those...
NASA photographs.
Yeah, I haven't seen those photographs yet, so I'll have to have a look. But yeah, I think... you know, there is a lot of confusion, but what I was referring to was below the event horizon, the perception horizon, below the speed of light, you have the world of polarity. And that's the world that we live in now. So we perceive separation. This is the lesson that we learn in this dimension, separation. So we perceive things as separate from us. We say, ooh, don't like that, that's evil, I'm good. You know, that's what we're learning. And we've come here to learn that lesson. Ultimately, You know, when you see what reality is ultimately everything is one and everything is unity. The singularity at the center of the black hole in your atoms, in your chakras, is the same as the singularity at the center of a supermassive black hole. You know, the singularity is the same. Ultimately, there is unity. We are playing a game of separation. And in that separation, the way to get back to that unity is to understand about integration. And all of life is steps towards integration of polarities, time and time again. And the more that you repress and deny something, the more stronger it will get. You know, and the more that we actually start to say, what is it about that person, something, body's behavior that I can't stand, could it be reflected in me, either this life or past life, and do that work, the more that we can integrate and move on. You know, and the more light quotient there will be on this planet, believe me.
Can I just say that reality is a trinity, not a duality? Many of you may be familiar with the yin-yang symbol, and obviously there is a polarity of the massless particle interaction that we are experiencing, but the bit that we experience is the curve formed by the yin and the yang. We experience the wave. Reality is a trinity, the events created by the interaction of the positive and the minus, if you like.
Okay, again, just one more thing on the subject of evil, which I think is a fascinating subject. It's a very loaded word. We'll shrink away from it in fear. Oh my God, evil, oh God, that's to do with religion and mass murder and stuff like that. So it's a very, very dangerous kind of word. And you know, that Brian Geairns yesterday mentioned political correctness and how, you know, people really are quite afraid of that word. And I just wanted to link that in with denial as well. People can be in denial about not just rejecting other people and calling them evil, but they can be denial about the existence of evil as well, because words are quite fluid, and words mean different things to different people. Some people load that word evil with religious connotations, and but to some people, the word evil just simply means something you don't want, basically. You call that evil. And something that you really don't evil, sort of thing. So that's my take on it, I would say. And the thing about political correctness, that we can become monkeys, see no evil, hear no evil, think no evil, self-improvement, or, you know, higher consciousness and everything. There is no evil because I don't want there to be any evil, and if I don't want there to be any evil, then there won't be. But, you know, I don't know where I'm going with it. But
do you have a question as such that you want to?
Well, I just wanted to make that point that evil is different things to different people at different times, and maybe the less loaded way of saying it is, well, just evil is something that I don't like, or that hurts me physically. I find that evil. To some people, you know,
okay,
it might not be evil because they might be sadomasochistic and they might love it. So
Okay. Well, look, thank you for that point. I appreciate that.
I'll relay a very quick experience to you all. What I found with this conference is that you really are looking at a level which is about good and evil and how all these secret societies are all doing all this sort of stuff. But there's one thing that everybody is missing, is the link to the multi-dimensions. And I've had a number of experiences within the multi-dimensions, and I've seen these different beings, and I've seen the human soul. It looks like a beautiful liquid mirror that's beating, and there's light matrices around it, which are like emotions. And the core thing that we're doing on this planet is we're interacting emotionally with each other. And as those emotions actually collapse, we grow our consciousness and grow our souls. So what's happening in the sense of these multidimensional beings linked to these Illuminati types who link to us, is we are generating the maximum amount of energy, emotional energy, which is symbiotic. We're doing this because we're a great human race. We are doing it to grow ourselves in consciousness, and these other people are using that energy for their own means. It's a comment, and I guess there's not much of a question there, but I just wanted to share that with you. That we need to pull ourselves more multidimensionally to understand what's really going on. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The BBC's charter states it's there to educate, inform and entertain, so I'd like to propose now, how about AVC? Ian R. Crane, Director General, we'd have a far more open-minded and far more less biased media. My point is actually, I'm sorry to be mundane, is about the economy, because it is going to affect every single man, woman and child in our nation and around the world. The government's answer to this seems to be postponement, or if I could quote Shakespeare, my best is dressing old words as new and spending again what is already spent. Given that the people have been lied to for the last 15 years, and when we're talking about cuts, we're not talking, folks, about knocking out a few social workers or closing down a few nurses. We're talking about whether or not we can afford a military. These are massive questions. When the public are told the truth sometime after the election, how do you think it will be handled, and will there be any honesty at all in the mainstream media? Because this country is bankrupted. The fact that they tell you it's 167 billion pounds they're going to have to borrow, it's 210 actually, and there's another 250 billion pounds of PFI agreements that have not been mentioned whatsoever. And when the public realise that they go to the hole in the wall and it goes, and it won't give them any money, what is going to happen? That's my question.
I can't answer that question, but I would like to echo your sentiments. Who do we owe the money to? Anybody know? We owe quite a lot of money. I expect they want something for it, and after the election, we'll find out what that is. And it's probably us to be poor and in their keep.
Just to add to that, really, much as we need to be aware of ourselves spiritually and dimensionally, like I am, it doesn't change the fact that the mainstream media are working against us for the most part. The banking system, the international bankers are working against us. There is a huge global agenda going on at the moment, as we're all aware of. Okay, that is not going to change unless we do something proactive. We're being robbed and fleeced every single day of our lives, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. You are paying council tax, you're paying income tax, which is rising all the time. There are more and more taxes being put on top of what we are already paying, okay? And we're just laying back and taking it and letting it happen. We need to do something proactive to stop this happening. The first thing that we need to do is to expose this to people. That's why on the front of the newspaper, and in case you haven't seen it, and I'm sure most of you have seen it, you are being lied to, okay? The Pinocchio noses, because that's exactly what they are. They are liars through and through. We need to expose this. We need to do something about it. We need to look after ourselves spiritually as well. But there's a lot of things we need to take care of. We need to take care of the futures of our children and our grandchildren, because the debt that they are bequeathing is astronomical, okay? And while we're sitting back and letting it happen and worrying about all those other things, then it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. When the economy collapses, we're going to go back to the Stone Age, and then we're going to go back to a feudal society. That's exactly what they want. We need to stick together, we need to network, we need to exchange information, we need to produce newspapers, which is very, very easy to do. I can show you how to do it. Okay? sovereignindependent.ie, editor at sovereignindependent.ie. I'll take you through it, and we'll get this going. Let's go away from here and actually make a difference.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to just very, very briefly return to the good versus evil debate on the idea, is there even such a thing? And I just want to make the point that maybe a way to express it is the creative principle and the destructive principle, if you look at it in spiritual terms, or there's a mathematical concept known as entropy, which expresses the same thing. And so how does that impact on how you think about things? I think, from my point of view, is to understand how the creative principle and the destructive principle works, how that exists in our lives, how that exists within human beings and different types of human beings, such as Brian Geairns talked about yesterday morning with psychopathy on the destructive side, and then to make a personal choice once you understand as to what principle you wish to align yourself with and to take steps to do so. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can we ask the panel here this is a good closing question, so thank you for that. Fairly short answers, but if each one of you would like to say something as your closing remarks in response to that, that would be lovely. So whoever first.
Ultimately, there is no judgment when you look at it from higher dimensions. But from this dimension, we all have to see what there is in life and follow our hearts as to what we want to do, follow our joy. And remember that, all of life ultimately is unity. And to see what it is that we are seeing in the mirror reflected and actually bring that into integration. That's very important. But ultimately, I do want to say, don't forget to have fun. And remember to be in your joy and to laugh and to dance. And if that means going down and wiping people's bottoms, then do. If that means starting a newspaper, then do. But remember to have fun, because if you start out at what you want to be the end point, you're already there. So.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to echo that sentiment. If there's going to be a revolution, I'm not going unless I can sing and dance at it.
I like this. I like the singing and dancing bit, but I just want to end up with a concept that comes from biology. It's absolutely fundamental to the evolution of all life, and you wouldn't be the human beings you are with your incredibly sensitive bodies and hearing and everything that makes you warm and cuddly and friendly. If it weren't for the fact that this universe is absolutely chock full of predators, wherever you look. Just really think about that. No, without predators, no evolution. Without predators, no human beings. We're not actually built to be predators. We're more like prey. And if you know your biology, you'll know that the chief predator of humans in the whole of their evolution is the panther. And actually, from a shamanic point of view, that's my power animal. So I have to really look at what it is, this powerful, destructive force. And the Mayans, who invented all of this calendar in 2012 and so forth, they worshipped, if you want to use that term, celebrated the Black Panther as the ultimate deity. They had their civilization and their pyramids and everything, but actually their top god was the Black Panther. So it's like, what is that? What is the predator? The predator eats what needs to be eaten. It recycles what's old and dead and dying and ready to go. And sometimes, actually, it doesn't. Sometimes it pursues the fittest and the strongest just because it really likes a contest. So without all of the predators, we don't get tested. Likewise, without evil, how does our love get tested? How does our courage get tested? Whoever set up this universe with its good and its evil and its predators, she knew what she was doing. And so for us, it's like, be aware. If you're not aware, you're going to get eaten. Right at the top of the pyramid, there are predators, human predators, who feed off our energy. And you know how it works. They dumb it all down, they put us in cages, control the education system, and suck all of the creative juice out of the children and out of us. And we're persuaded that the only way we can survive, because we are landless peasants, we don't know how to look after ourselves. We've had it all stolen from us, and we're at the end point of a long evolution. And I've asked the question, what are they doing with this energy? That's a kind of esoteric thing that the magicians are up to. It doesn't really matter. What matters is we don't collude with it anymore. That we take the risk of being in our own power and our own creativity, and we don't give them any power at all. Nothing. We just get on with creating our, what we really, 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 really value. Thank you.
Thank you.
I suppose as my role as the editor of the Sovereign Independent and an imparter of information to people, all I can say to you is this has been the most satisfying thing I've ever done in my life. Now, I've no doubt that most of you there in the audience, you've woken up at least one or two people, and you remember what that feels like when you wake somebody up and they're not sheep anymore. They're actually woken up, their eyes are woken up, they realise how they can get themselves out of debt, they realise all of these things. It's an exhilarating experience. You can have fun doing it. You can have fun working together, making friends with each other, friends that understand each other. You're all of a like mind. And if you go out now, you get to know each other, you exchange phone numbers, exchange addresses, build friendships, do proactive stuff. That is the most exhilarating experience that you can have, waking people up. It's a gift. And I have that gift. I feel that gift. All of the people that are working with me, there's 8 of us that are the core members of the Sovereign Independent, and I don't think any of us have felt so satisfied in all of our lives in doing what we're doing and waking up so many people. Go and do it yourselves.
Okay. Now, we did say right at the end we'd give you the opportunity to find out who you can network with based on where you actually live. So this will only work with all your participation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split our Great Britain UK into the following: Ireland, Scotland, Wales, North West, North East, Midlands, East, West and South West, South, South East. Okay? So hopefully you've thought where you're from. Okay? So what you need to do is when I call out your area that you've decided you're in, stand up and wave at each other. Camera crew already have got the wide shot, so that's great. So, anyone from Ireland, stand up. No one from, oh, there we go. Wave at each other, look around and wave. Well, there you, well, typical, this is what you do with Guinness, isn't it? Goodness me. Right, people from Scotland, stand up. Who we got? We got one from Scotland. 2 from Scotland, wave at each other. There you go. Any more from Scotland? Right, there we go. Wales, who have we got from Wales? One over there, wave at each other, look out for each other, okay? Right, now we'll go to the Northwest. Who's from the Northwest? Let's see you, goodness me, there you go. Wave at each other, look at the faces, share drinks later, swap numbers, emails, addresses. Northeast, who's from the Northeast? Stand up, let's have a look, wave at each other, get their faces, that's where we're at, okay? Right, we're going to the Midlands. Who's from the Midlands? Stand up. There you go. There you all are. Wave at each other. Okay. Now, we're going to the East now. East, where have we got? We got some... Oh, look, they're all congregated in the East. You didn't know they existed, did you? There you go. Wave at each other. Have a look around. Okay, we're going to the West and Southwest now. Stand up if you're from the West and Southwest. Okay, there you go. Wave at each other. There you go. Look out for their faces. Know who you're going to buy a drink for later. Okay, who's from down south? Who's south? Who's from the down south? There we go. Look at you. There you go. Look at those faces. There you go. Right, lovely. And I think... Yes, Channel Islands and the south. There we go. There. And finally, southeast. Who have we got from the southeast? And that will include London in that. London and the southeast. Who have we got? There you go. Wave at each other, look at the faces. Who haven't you seen this weekend? Make a beeline for them a bit later. There you go. Just shows you from all corners of the UK. This is AV4. And where are you from? Oh, Australia. There we go. Any more Australians? There we go.
Fantastic.
Anyone left out? Well, where are you from, sir? Switzerland!
Oh.
Any more? Any more from foreign climes? The Isle of Man. Oh, you've always got to be different, haven't you? The Isle of Man! Any more? And we have... Denmark! I think that's our lot. Andy?
Okay, well, I have two... Before I hand you back to Alex for a few house notices about tonight, which I'm sure he will have, I have 2 important things to do. Number 1, if you are the gentleman that lost some money, your money has been found. So now don't all queue up and say, I am that gentleman. They will ask for ID. But you go to the reception desk, your money is safe and sound. So whoever that was,
That
well
was
done.
the birthday present I was mentioning earlier.
Okay, that was the, right. So that's been found. But the most important thing of all to do is to thank yourselves for participating today, but also to our panel. So a big round of applause to our panel.